Frieren Beyond Journey's End is just incredible. It's rare to see such a high level of polish from anything in the entertainment medium, let alone an anime. Every aspect of this anime is a 10 out of 10. There is not a single part of this anime that disappoints and lets down the rest. Last year I was blown away by how incredible Vinland Saga Season 2 was and came to the conclusion that it was now my favourite anime. In less than a year, an anime has come along that might have dethroned Vinland Saga, at least for me. This is one of the most beautiful anime I've ever watched in terms of its visuals, its aesthetic and its characters. Anime has definitely improved in recent years, with more mature series getting better, more frequent adaptations. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is the pinnacle of that for me. This is an anime that tells a deeply emotional and unwavering story. It is able to often escape predictability without ever feeling like events happen just to subvert your expectations or to shock you. And that feat is primarily to do with Frieren's greatest strength, its characters. Characters matter more to me than anything when it comes to my own personal enjoyment of my entertainment. So I was unsurprisingly ecstatic when I was watching this anime, because this anime is a goldmine when it comes to characters. There are characters in this show who only appear for half an episode who have more depth, complexity and nuance to them than any characters in these shows. And you want to know something? All the anime I just put on screen are some of my favourite anime. That is how good the characters are in Frieren. They are in a league of their own. So how about we stop dilly-daddling and actually take a deeper dive into the wonderful characters of Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Before I go any further with this video, I do want to flag up a minor spoiler warning. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers, mainly because I would like people to experience this anime as blind as I did. But I am going to discuss some things that you may not wish to know about going into this anime. Okay, now that's out of the way, let's talk about Frieren, the character, not the show this time. Frieren is a brilliant lead and the entire show is centered around her. Frieren is an elf, and like a lot of fantasy series, elves live a really long time in this show. I think in this series, Frieren is at least 1,000 years old, and this long lifespan has resulted in Frieren being an emotionally distant person. It's hard to truly care for people when they age and wither in the blink of an eye. However, that doesn't mean that Frieren doesn't care about people. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Frieren has just repressed her emotions so much that she's not even aware of how she actually feels, and is also, unsurprisingly, unaware of how other people truly feel too. This emotional unawareness of Frieren finally comes to a head when she meets Himmel and joins his party to defeat the Demon King. She goes on these adventures with Himmel, Heiter and Eisen that have a deep impact on all of them. However, Frieren views it as nothing but 10 short years of her extremely long life. To her, her travels with Himmel would be nothing more than a footnote in her life. But instead, it's her greatest source of regret. She truly cared for Himmel, and her tragic realisation of that as she watches as his old, dead body is slowly buried in the ground is heartbreaking. She never got to know Himmel as well as she should have, and now she never will. It's the reason why she acts so differently to Fern and Stark after giving Himmel the cold shoulder for so many years. She may not always understand why something is a big deal or has emotional weight for Fern and Stark, but she's learnt from her mistake and no longer wants to waste the short time that she has with the people that she cares about. Honestly, Frieren is such a tragic character, and the moments in the show where I was close to tears, of which there were several moments, usually revolved around Frieren's and Himmel's relationship. You empathise with Frieren's regret and wonder what could have been had Frieren decided to stay with Himmel until he died, because as the series progresses, it becomes clearer and clearer just how much Himmel cared about Frieren, and it also starts to become clear just how much Frieren secretly loved him back. But that's what's so great about Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Despite its fantasy setting and the existence of magic, elves and demons, it's a very human story, and humans make mistakes and misunderstand things and have regrets, and that's the core aspect of who we are as people that Frieren was able to lock onto and put into its characters. Stuff like Frieren and Himmel's relationship hurt so much because so many of us can instantly relate to and understand how the characters feel, even if they never put it into words. Anime can sometimes have trouble showing mature, realistic relationships. That is certainly not the case here, and Frieren and Himmel's relationship isn't the only case of that happening in this show. Also, massive props to Utsumi Tanizaki for her performance as Frieren here. I would never have assumed that this is the same voice actor that plays Anya in Spy Family.
地獄に落ちな baby.
She's also voiced quite a few characters like Emporio in Stone Ocean and Chise in The Ancient Magus Bride. But it was learning that Frieren shared a voice with Anya that shocked me the most, especially when Frieren and Spy Family Season 2 were airing at the same time. But anyway, we have more characters to discuss, like Fern for example. Fern is probably my least favourite of this show's main trio, but that should be taken as more of a testament of how good Frieren and Stark are as characters. Unlike Frieren, Fern is very inexperienced, especially at the start of the show. We see as Fern struggles with having to fight monsters, but also as she quickly grows in confidence. By the end of the season, it's made clear that Fern is 1 in a billion. She's on the level, or will be on the level, of the legendary mage Flamme, and that's all due to her constant training and Frieren's teachings, and I absolutely loved whenever we got to see Fern in action. There was a calmness to her that only Frieren could rival, and it makes her seem so badass, especially as she has the quickest trigger finger out of all the mages in this show. However, my favourite aspect about Fern is the 3 major relationships that she has in this show. Firstly with Heiter, then with Frieren, and finally with Stark. Whilst we don't get to see as much of it as we do her relationship with the other 2 characters that I mentioned, Fern did have a very strong relationship with Heiter. He basically raised her, and even though he isn't around for most of the present timeline of Frieren Beyond Journey's End, he's had a major impact on who she is, and she still mentions him every now and then. Every act of improvement that Fern undertakes is taken so that she can live up to how Heiter perceived her, and it's not just Heiter that Fern strives to be better for. Fern wants Frieren's approval. She knows how powerful Frieren is and wants to live up to that. It's not quite the parent-child relationship that she had with Heiter, since Fern does act like Frieren's mom every now and then due to Frieren's surprisingly sloppy behaviour. But there is a lot of respect that Fern has for Frieren, and you can clearly tell that Fern looks up to her. It's probably best to describe Fern and Frieren like sisters, with Frieren being the older sister who just so happens to be thousands of years older. In stark contrast to that is Fern's relationship with everyone's favourite redhead, Stark. I mentioned earlier that Frieren and Himmel wasn't the only case of a very realistic and well done romantic relationship in this show. The other major one I was thinking about was Fern's relationship with Stark. I don't think I've ever seen a better slow burn romance in an anime before. I've definitely seen good romances in anime, but I don't think I've ever seen one progress so naturally that it genuinely felt realistic that the two didn't just start dating. Fern and Stark are young and inexperienced and are each other's first love. It makes sense that, whilst they both know they care for one another, they don't instinctively start dating. Just like how in real life a lot of people who are close to one another don't take that final plunge into being a couple, even though everyone and their grandma knows that the two one day will. It's been a lot of fun watching as their relationship progressed from the days of Fern very clearly disliking Stark to now where the two are inseparable. My favourite part of their relationship is how Fern is very obviously projecting on Stark because Stark is basically a cute and very innocent puppy dog, and yet Fern constantly calls him a pervert despite his intentions always being pure. One suspects that it is Fern with the dirty mind in that relationship. Again, big props to the voice acting on this one. Kana Ichinose did an incredible job. Fern is a fairly monotone character, kind of like Frieren, yet Kana Ichinose was always able to put across how Fern truly felt. And since we're doing voice actor trivia in this video, Kana Ichinose also voiced Suletta in Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury. Rounding out our lead trio is Stark. Stark is the comic relief character in this show, with him often being the character who gets injured or who has bad things happen to them. However, Stark is more than just a silly character. He is a three-dimensional person. He is very cowardly when we're first introduced to him and believes he can't live up to his master's greatness. As you may have noticed, the main characters in this show all have a key link to the original hero's party who defeated the Demon King. For Frieren, it's Himmel, for Fern, it's Heiter, and for Stark, it's Eisen. The interesting thing is that Eisen was just as cowardly and scared as Stark currently is. Stark slowly learns that one of the greatest parts of being a warrior is to be brave, and you can't have bravery without fear. I also like that Stark is just a genuinely decent person. Whilst Frieren and Fern are off doing the magic exam, Stark is going around the town helping everyone out. And just like when he accidentally protected the village from the dragon, everyone there has grown to love him. Stark is just an indisputably nice person, and it's no surprise that he was able to worm his way into the hearts of not just the characters in this show, but the viewers too. Also, I had a similar shocking revelation with Stark's voice actor as I did with Frieren's, although this time it's because the characters all sound the same. I can't believe that I never figured out that Stark has the same voice as Mash from Mashle and Gabimaru from Hell's Paradise. It shows that Chiaki Kobayashi did a fantastic job of inhabiting the role of Stark, injecting just enough personality into the character to separate him from his other performances. However, these three weren't the only members of the party in this show. There was a late addition who really stole the show for me, called Sein. I wasn't sure of how Sein would fit within the pre-established group, but it turns out I had nothing to worry about. Sein fit in perfectly and was such a good addition that when he left the group, it broke my heart. I was sadder about Sein leaving the team than I was about most characters dying in other shows. That's how much I connected with Sein. He was the most mature out of the group and the one that had to settle all the group squabbling, i.e. every time that Fern got inexplicably annoyed at Stark even though he didn't actually do anything wrong. Sein was a fantastic character and I really do hope that we get to see more of him because I wasn't ready to say goodbye to him. Also, he has the same voice as Gojo. Now we return to Himmel. Himmel might just be the best dead character I've ever seen in fiction. Every time that we return to him in the flashbacks, it's such an enjoyable experience. Himmel is just such a genuinely well written character. We only ever get brief snippets of who he was, but those brief snippets paint such a compelling picture. Himmel was such a kind man, a true hero, regardless of the weapon that he used. He forged his own destiny and was able to inspire all those around him. He may have had a bit of a narcissistic viewpoint of his appearance, but he always paid more attention to those around him than he did his own reflection. And his love for Frieren was so pure and true that it really is a shame that he was never able to properly convey how he truly felt to her. Himmel is such a great character, and his strong characterization is potentially the main reason why so many people, myself included, would love to see the adventures that Himmel and the party went on as they prepared to defeat the Demon King. Also, Himmel shares a voice with Bakugo. I'm not going to go into as much detail on any of the other characters in Frieren as I did with these five, but I do want to highlight some of the other incredible characters in this show. Firstly, both Heiter and Eisen are fantastic. It's not just Himmel that makes me want to see the heroes party's adventures. Heiter is a really funny character and there's a lot of subtle baggage that could be unpacked from both characters. Also, Eisen shares a voice with Oetsu from Bleach. Somehow, they sound nothing alike. Anyway, that's the last time I mentioned the voice actor's other roles, otherwise we'd be here all day. Flamme is a really cool character. She never connected with me like the heroes party, but I love the brief little glimpses we got of her life. You can tell that she had a major impact on Frieren and the entire world. Like Fern, she was 1 in a billion. If Frieren returns, I hope that we learn a lot more about Flamme. Denken was a Chad who showed up out of nowhere and stole the hearts of everyone. He was such a badass, but above all, he was dignified and respectable. Just the perfect man in every way. Levine and Carne were a great source of comedy in the show. Werbel is the sort of character that I wish we got to see more protagonists in shonen be like, rough around the edges but a heart of gold. Lanz was just cool, Richter was packed with nuance, Sere was a complex and hard to pin down character, but the more we got to know about her, the softer my opinion of her became. And then Ubel is the character that I feel like a lot of people will latch onto because she's the insane girl. Like I said, Frieren Beyond Journey's End has an incredible cast of characters with great voice acting propping them up. Frieren is a very character driven show. In fact, the story of Frieren is actually very simple, deceptively so. It's literally about 3 characters going from point A to point B, and we just happen to see the shenanigans they go through on their way there. The complexity of this series is instead completely rooted in the characters, and I couldn't be happier about that. It's not that rare for a show to have one good character, or a couple of good characters, but it's not often you see a show like Frieren where everyone has had thought and care put into their characterization. But enough about the story and characters. It's time that we spoke about the more technical aspects of this show. Just listen to this show's soundtrack. It is just so beautiful. It's the type of soundtrack where you feel your soul leave your body and float above you, because you have ascended. Evan Cole has done a wonderful job of composing once again. His previous works include Violet Evergarden and My Happy Marriage. This might be his best work in my opinion. It's such a fitting soundtrack that perfectly pulls you into the world of Frieren. Everyone will love this soundtrack, although not everyone was a fan of the opening for this anime. I remember that the very first opening for Frieren was quite divisive. Personally, I really liked it. Like most people, I am a fan of Yoasobi's work. I really like the second Beastars opening that they did, for example. However, it's not the song's quality that people had an issue with, it's whether it fit Frieren or not. As someone who never read the manga before watching the anime and has seen the lyrics for the song, I have to say that I found it to be a very fitting opening for the anime. I love that it's basically Frieren singing about Himmel and how she feels about him deep down in her heart. It's a great song that fits the anime perfectly, in my opinion. I actually didn't like the second opening for Frieren. Not a bad song, just not my cup of tea, and I didn't look up the lyrics, so I have no idea how much it fits the anime thematically. Visually, I did prefer the second opening though, but the ending song might be the real star of this show. This anime has 2 openings and 1 ending, and it isn't hard to see why. Visually, both versions of the ending are great, but it's the song that's just perfect in my opinion. It really encapsulates everything that I feel about Frieren. It would always just peacefully carry us out of an episode and never felt jarring as endings sometimes can feel. It is brilliant and the perfect capper for a Frieren episode. Outside of the characters in this show, I think what really sets Frieren apart from the competition is its animation. Frieren is just stunning to look at. This is not a show that needed incredibly animated action sequences to be considered good, but I'm not going to complain about them being here. In terms of animation, last year was stacked. We had Demon Slayer Season 3, we had Mushoku Tensei Season 2, we had Pluto, there was Hell's Paradise, there was Bleach 1000 Year Blood War Season 2, and then of course there was Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. To me, Frieren sits comfortably alongside all those anime for having some of the best animation of last year. In fact, I might even say that Frieren has the best animation out of all of those anime. We'd be splitting hairs, but like I said earlier, Frieren has a level of polish that I don't think I've seen before. Lots of anime have moments or scenes or episodes where the animation goes insane. Here, every episode of Frieren has incredible animation, and that great animation isn't just reserved for the moments of spectacle. No, even the quieter, more mundane moments are afforded incredible animation too, like when Stark puts his jacket on. Honestly, it's great to see an anime by Madhouse get such widespread appreciation. I've said it in videos before, but Madhouse were the top dog before Mappa arguably took their crown. But that doesn't mean that Madhouse have fallen to the wayside and started producing poorly animated pieces of work. Whilst they haven't been putting out the consistent slew of heavy hitters that they used to, Madhouse have continued to make high quality animations. Something I learned for myself recently when I watched Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card. Video on that coming soon. I'm really pleased to see that Madhouse are still capable of creating such high quality series that are able to resonate with so many people. I just hope that Madhouse don't live up to every part of their reputation. If you didn't know, Madhouse are famous for being unable to count to 2 since they don't often make sequels to their anime. Hopefully, Frieren bucks the trend because I absolutely need Frieren Season 2 in my life. I don't know what I would do or how many people would get injured if Frieren Season 2 never got to see the light of day, but I am hopeful that Frieren will get a second season since it has apparently been a success. And though it may not be an isekai, it is a fantasy, and I hope that's close enough to warrant Frieren getting a second season. If I had to force myself to come up with some negatives for this show, then the first would be a hypothetical. I worry that Frieren could outstay its welcome. There was a period about halfway into the series where I did experience a bit of a lull. It was only a brief period, but I worry that there might be more lulls in the future that might last longer. Every show has its ups and downs, but considering the overall simplicity of Frieren's story, I do hope it bows out at the right time. The other negative is one of predictability. Overall, this show isn't predictable and goes in many interesting directions. However, after a certain point in the show, you do start to expect the Himmel flashbacks. Whenever Frieren goes off on a tangent, or even so much as mentions Himmel, you can feel the countdown to the flashback begin. It's not a big issue, just something I started to notice the more the show progressed. Frieren Beyond Journey's End might just be my favourite thing ever. It has some of the best character writing I've ever seen, it has some of the best animation I've ever seen, it has an absolutely beautiful soundtrack and art design, the character designs are great in this show too, the voice acting is top notch across the board, and it means so much to me. I literally dreamt about this anime. That doesn't happen often. The only other anime I've ever dreamt about is Bleach, and that's because I was excited about it returning. In fact, this wasn't a dream, it was a nightmare. I literally dreamt about Frieren walking around the pub with a little kid in hand, searching for Fern and Stark. It was a dream, not all of it needs to make sense, but the nightmare part came when Frieren just couldn't find them, and then she just broke down in tears because Fern and Stark weren't around anymore. I literally woke up overcome by such sadness. Nightmares are usually scary because of what happens to you. This nightmare was scary because of what happened to someone else. That just shows how much I connected with Frieren, that I actually felt her fear and panic in my dream. That just shows how special this show is to me. Every single part of this show is at such a high level, and it's the reason why Frieren isn't just a good show. It's a must watch. This is one of those shows that may very well change you and how you look at the people you love, because you never know how long they'll be around. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like as it boosts this video in the YouTube algorithm. A comment also has a similar effect. What did you think of Frieren Beyond Journey's End? Did you like it? Do you think it deserves to be the highest rated anime on my anime list? Who's your favourite character in this show and why? And do you think we'll see Sein again anytime soon? Do let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next week, where hopefully I'll be talking about solo leveling. But until then, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.